This is a day that the Lord has made. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Vanessa. I'm a Christian woman doing my best to put God first. I am a mom and I wanted to share with you all the children's stories of the Bible from the Old and New Testaments. It was a book given to me the Christmas I was 9 years old. It introduced me to Jesus, to God, to all the stories of the Bible, which led me to want to read the real Bible. So I want to read every single chapter. It will be one chapter per video. If you want to read this with your children, feel free to do so. Enjoy. Chapter 18, Esther. In the days of the Old Testament, there lived a rich and powerful king named Ahasuerus, who ruled all of the Persian Empire. To celebrate his great prosperity, King Ahasuerus invited his princes, noblemen, and servants to a big feast, which lasted for 7 days. On the last day of the celebration, the king sent for his beautiful wife, Vashti, because he was proud of her and wanted to present her to the people. But Vashti refused to come at the king's command. Ahasuerus was enraged at the queen's rude behavior and felt that her actions might encourage other wives to disobey their husbands. So he sent Vashti away from the palace and issued a decree. This called all the beautiful young maidens of the land to come before him so that he could choose a new queen. A Jew named Mordecai heard the decree and was eager for his niece Esther to go before the king because she was very beautiful. So Mordecai brought Esther to the palace, first advising her not to tell anyone that she was of the house of Israel. When Esther went before Ahasuerus, he would not take his eyes away from her. He fell in love with her and preferred her to all the other maidens. So he set the royal crown on Esther's head and made her queen in place of Vashti. After several days had passed, Esther's uncle Mordecai happened to pass 2 of the king's guards and overheard them plotting to murder the king. Immediately Mordecai went to Esther, who in turn told Ahasuerus of the plan to murder him. When the matter was investigated, the 2 guards confessed to the plot and were put to death. Then Ahasuerus appointed a man named Haman, in whom he had great trust, to be his chief officer in charge of the many princes and governors in the land. All the people of Persia bowed down to Haman to show their respect for the king's favored servant. But Mordecai did not trust Haman and refused to bow down to him. Haman was filled with fury and hatred and vowed that he would punish not only Mordecai, but all the Jews in the land. Haman went to Ahasuerus with an untrue story. He told the king that certain people in Persia were following their own customs instead of obeying the king's laws. Haman urged the king to destroy these people because he said they were weakening his kingdom. Ahasuerus trusted and believed Haman, and so he gave him full permission to do whatever he believed was necessary for the good of the country. With the king's permission, the evil Haman ordered the death of every Jew in the land. When Mordecai heard this fearful news, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth, the robes of grief. Then he went to Esther's chambermaids and asked them to take the news to Esther. He also told them to ask her to go before the king and plead for her people's safety and for her own life. However, there was a royal custom that no one could approach the king unless that person was sent for. If any man or woman disobeyed the rule, the penalty was death. But Esther knew that she had to speak to the king, not only to save her own life, but for the sake of all the Jews in Persia. So she put on her most beautiful royal robes and stood at the entrance to the king's palace. Ahasuerus was sitting on his throne, and he at once saw his fair queen standing before him. Instead of being angry, Ahasuerus was pleased to see her and held out his golden scepter to show Esther that she was welcome. And Esther drew near and touched the end of the scepter as a sign of respect to the king. Then Ahasuerus promised to grant any wish for Esther, even if it meant giving away half of his kingdom. But Esther explained that her only wish was at the moment was for the king and his officer Haman to join her at dinner the next evening. Both the king and Haman accepted Esther's invitation, and Haman went away feeling very happy and honored that the queen had chosen him as her guest. In fact, he felt so safe and sure of both the king and queen's favor that he had the gallows made for Mordecai's hanging the next morning. That same evening, King Ahasuerus had trouble falling asleep, so he sent for a special book in which all the memorable deeds in the land were recorded. As Ahasuerus was reading, he came to the part which told how Mordecai had saved his life by exposing the murderous plot of the 2 royal guards. Ahasuerus asked his servants if any honor or reward had been given to Mordecai, and they replied that nothing had been done for him. Just then Haman entered the king's chamber to speak to Ahasuerus about Mordecai's hanging, as the gallows was prepared. But before Haman could say anything, Ahasuerus asked his trusted officer, "What shall be done to the man whom the king delights to honor?" And Haman, thinking that the king wanted to honor him, said, "I would give this man royal robes that the king has worn, a horse that the king has ridden, and let him ride through the streets of the city for all the people to honor." Then King Ahasuerus said to Haman, "Make haste, take the robes and the horse, as you have said, and do so to Mordecai the Jew who sits at the king's gate." Haman was shocked by the king's request, but he obeyed Ahasuerus. In great anger and jealousy, he led Mordecai through the streets to be honored by the whole city. The next evening, Ahasuerus and Haman attended Queen Esther's feast. While everyone was eating, the king said to Esther, "What is your wish?" And Esther replied, "My wish is that you save the lives of my people and myself, for we have been ordered to die." Then King Ahasuerus said, "Who is this man who could do such a thing?" Again Esther replied, "A foe and an enemy. This wicked Haman. He has ordered the death of all the Jews, and since I am a Jew, I am to die too." Angrily, King Ahasuerus rose to his feet and ordered Haman to be hanged from the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Then Ahasuerus gave Haman's house to Queen Esther and chose Mordecai to be his chief officer in place of Haman. When the Jews heard of this victory against the villainous Haman, who threatened to take their lives, they all gathered and made an enormous feast. To this day, every year the Jews celebrate a holiday called Purim, at which time this ancient story of Esther is retold. I will have a playlist, like I said, by chapter in Old Testament and then the New Testament if you want to continue reading. See you next time.